Hello and welcome to The Successful Mentalist. Of course, it's Ashley and Aidan here, and this is another midweek episode called Just the Tip. You know, in these short bite-sized sections of knowledge and information, tips and ideas, is just designed to keep you thinking and on track within your entertainment business. And today is going to be talking about something which, Aidan, you've been talking about for quite a while now, whether it's content online, content on your website, but today is specifically about the tricks and what we're doing with our material. It is evergreen material.
See, evergreen material is something that we've kind of been exploring for quite a while, and I'm a huge fan of. So realistically right now, let's actually have a little bit of a definition on that, because I appreciate that most people listening to this will probably be thinking, what the heck is evergreen material? So for me, evergreen material is this whole idea that a piece of material, a trick, a routine, a thing that we actually do, whether we're a mentalist or a magician, can be duplicated and feel completely different just by changing the information revealed, or the reveal actually of the trick. So what do we mean by that? Let's take a quick look at the example of maybe somebody writes a piece of information, a word down on a billet, and you reveal that. Well, ultimately, this routine, providing we structure it right, if we change just one thing, that being the input, the actual information being revealed, in this case, the word, we can change that to pretty much anything that we like. And all that will change is the presentation. The method is going to stay the same. The actual handling, for the most part, will stay the same, and I would argue that it should stay the same. The only thing that is different is the way you present that piece of information in the reveal process. Essentially what we're doing here is we're getting your one trick, that one piece of information, and turning it into something much more different, so that in a theoretical world, you could be followed around by the same group every single performance piece that you do at a gig, and it would feel and look different every single time, just because you've changed that one little piece of information. And when you do that, what I'm a huge fan of is turning all of my material, or as much as I possibly can, into this whole angle of evergreen, so that I'm never having to do that thing that everybody that sees a magician does, of pull out the next trick and then the next trick and then the next trick. It's like, I don't need to change anything. I can pack lighter and get more bang for my buck, so to speak.
Well, a nice thing is it just makes it more personal for your audience, and it makes it more interesting for your audience, and you can create moments which seem like completely bespoke and unique for your audience, even though you might be doing the same baseline trick, the same baseline effect. It's just their experience. It feels like you've done something so unique and different from them, when in reality, you've only just made a few tweaks and changes.
Well, exactly, that's it. It's the only thing that we really change is what they write down on the billet in this example. Now, this applies pretty much anywhere that you like. If you want to take a look in the whole world of magic, and you say you do this routine, like the whole tic-tac-toe is a huge thing, the noughts and crosses game, and then you spin that around and there's a reveal on there. Realistically, that could be a viable piece of evergreen material, because that end reveal, you could just change what goes in and the outcome is very, very different. Whereas ultimately, again, that's probably a bad example here, because it looks the same, the whole process and the whole build up. But the idea here is, look, we're thinking about what we actually want our audiences to feel and see in that moment, and then actually giving them a piece of information to sort of latch onto that memory. Because as we've said on countless times, stories are really important, and the easiest way to create a story that people are going to want to talk about is using emotion. And if you can use a piece of emotionally charged information, whether that's deeply personal or just absolutely hilarious, or it's really somber or whatever you like, if you can do that by using evergreen material, so rather than just write a word down, write a word that means something to you. Write a memory, summarized into one word. Write the most ridiculous word, your favorite word, like anything here. You put a spin on it. You get an emotion that you can use in the reveal process, which, as a result, is going to help people remember you and make things feel more different, feel more unique. Like you said, bespoke.
Well, it's like in the last Just a Tip episode where I mentioned why my favourite thing I like to perform in close-up, and stage as well, is the one ahead, because every single reveal in that, you can change at a moment's notice and it won't make it any more difficult for you. I think the crucial thing here is that people sometimes become kind of limited by, oh, this is the way the trick works, this is the way I've been taught it, this is the way the instructions tell it, and they never get out of that mindset of just actually, well, you can realistically do what you want, and when you do what you want, it's actually going to play better. And as you've said, you can now hit emotion, you can now hit it to be more bespoke, you can make it more personal, so now your audience is going to give more of a damn and actually pay more attention.
I think it's one of those things that separates the trick from you, more importantly. It takes it away and it puts a step in the way of actually just doing trick followed by a trick followed by a trick. For example, in the one ahead, like you mentioned it really well in the last episode, like it is so versatile. You can change the information and you can change your reveal process. Like you could adjust those, yet the trick ultimately is the same from table to table, yet it looks wildly different. And again, by focusing on the people that you've got in front of you. For example, if I'm sat down and I find out that I'm with a bunch of university students, one of them is studying law and another is studying graphic design or art or some creative subject, I'm not going to say like write down a random word or pick a card or something like that. Instead, I've got this opportunity now that I know that a billet peak of any kind is evergreen material. Okay, you're naturally creative. How about you draw something? Oh, how you deal with laws and fancy words and schmancy stuff like that? Okay, think of a word. Now you've got a good vocabulary. Think of a word, and now we get to dip into their worlds a little bit more and extract them. And we're all for looking inwards at ourselves and bringing us and showing up as the most authentic version of ourselves in performance mode. But if we can go into our audiences just a little bit more, it's going to tell us so much more about them and lead to further opportunities going forwards.
I remember seeing Chloe Crawford actually do something similar to this in her online show at the end. Instead of doing a card trick, she'd done a card trick. The methods were a card trick, but instead of playing cards, it was like a little picture book with little photos of like memories from her life. And it was a completely different dynamic than if she just done a bunch of color changes and productions. Instead of thinking, wow, that's cool, we was like, oh my gosh, that's really beautiful, that's a nice story. And we was more captivated because of it. And it just made it so much more personal in that moment. But Aidan, I want to ask you a question. I'm a magician sat here at the moment. I'm listening to this podcast and I'm thinking, okay, evergreen material is a great way of getting material which is very flexible for very different situations, which will work wherever. It makes it more personal and more interesting. I'm really struggling to see how I can implement that and how I can do it. Where would they start?
Well, one of the most important things that I found when exploring the whole evergreen material concept was to literally take stock of everything that I'm performing right now. Either performing routinely at gigs is like the most common things, or set 1 for a lot of people, set 2 and set 3. Look at all the different sets and tricks that you actually perform or have performed at gigs. And whether that's in close-up and stage or just anywhere you like, look at what you're performing right now and think, how would this trick be completely different if I changed the information going in? Nothing else. I would probably even go to the extent of just saying, like, what you have in terms of props is all you have. You have the same props. How do you make that feel different? For example, if you've got a bunch of blank billets and what you use those for was a word reveal, perfect example here for using lots of different information. You can have a drawing, you can have a number, you can have a name, you can have lots of different things there. And this is just one really obvious example here. But if you look across your entire performance repertoire and start thinking of the things like, hang on a minute, on stage, right here, I have somebody write something down that then correlates with a word, or I don't know, pick your own material here. I'm just making this up because it's not off the top of my head that I create that stuff. But look at what you've got right now and just change the input, change the piece of information that you're going to reveal at the end and see what like you can play with there. You don't change anything else. It technically means that you're getting at least one more trick out of the trick that you've just bought. If it's an obvious online trick that you've bought, like you get more out of it just by thinking, what can I change at the end and put in at the start? And how can that change the entire premise, the presentation of the routine?
Absolutely golden. There's your advice. There's everything you need to know. So look, that is such an easy way of making your material, I would argue, just better. Like just baseline, just better in general because of everything we've mentioned. But then again, Aidan, if that so-called magician was sat here thinking, okay, I was struggling with my material, struggling to change it to evergreen. Okay, I understand where to do that. But is there any more resources where I can read about this further? Is there anywhere they could go?
It's funny you mentioned that because there actually is. If you head over to thesuccessfulmentalist.com/evergreen. Again, the link is in the show notes, but that's thesuccessfulmentalist.com/evergreen. There's a complete article on there that I've written on this approach, this philosophy, sharing some little insights on how I was able to do this, how you guys can actually do this with the material that you've got so far, and some other little thought-provoking ideas and concepts and questions to really dig into this. Because again, as you said, Ashley, it makes your material better. It makes it more engaging. It means that you're more flexible as a performer, which is, well, I would say it's been proven, but we have proven through our training and our clients' training that is the most important thing that you can do as an entertainer. Be flexible in the moment. And evergreen material just gives you that little edge to actually making that happen. So again, if you want to check out that complete article, head over to thesuccessfulmentalist.com/evergreen.